Hey, I have a question for you that's really important before we...
All right, it's 8:30, so.
I know. This is not being moved forward by staff.
Oh, it's not?
No, I need to check, I'll check with you, Tom, but...
Let me tell him.
I don't know, maybe it changed the last time. Then we'll just say, I'm gonna ask you, Tom, instead. Is it all? 400 for net moving forward now?
Good morning, folks. We just need one more minute before we get the meeting started. Waiting on a technical answer here. We want to shake it up a little. If you want to sit over here so you can see the screen better, we got.
Throwing me off.
Yeah.
My game. I'll be out of position.
Always a different position to learn.
Experience something.
That's right.
How's it going?
Change position. Good. How you
Good.
Just on a slight delay. We're waiting on a.
To hear if one of the applications is actually gonna be presented
Or
today.
is valid per zoning rule. Okay.
Yes.
The question that's currently being determined is for 2501, 400? Okay, so you can reveal it? Okay, but I can start otherwise. I just want okay, thank you. Okay, good morning, everybody. I apologize for the late start. This is the Syracuse Landmark Preservation Board meeting of March 13th, 2025. Present at today's meeting are
Nicole Fragnito.
Kyle Gregory.
Jeff Romano,
Hillary Donahue.
Howard Trish.
Martha Hertzberg, Corporation Counsel's Office.
And Kate Auetter, staff.
thank you. Any excused?
Yes, Julia Marshall and Bob Searing are both excused.
Okay, thank you. May I have a motion to accept the meeting minutes of February the 20th, 2025?
I move to accept the minutes.
Do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Second, Howard. Any modifications to the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public hearings. The board will now conduct the public hearings on today's agenda. Excuse me. First, the applicant or the applicant's representative will be invited to describe the proposed scope of work and present any material or documentation regarding the proposal to the board. Next, the persons wishing to speak in favor of this proposal will be given opportunity to do so. Then, persons who wish to speak in opposition to the project will be allowed to address the board. Finally, the applicant or the representative will be given the opportunity to make closing comments to the board. Following public comment, the board may vote to approve with conditions, or deny the application just heard. The board may also decide to hold its decision until the next public hearing. If the hearing is closed, no additional information will be allowed into the record except for the information that that the board may request. That information will be available for public review with the board staff. Staff, will you please introduce the first application?
Sure. Our first application is CA-25-04. It is a certificate of appropriateness for 118 Wendell Terrace for the installation of an in-ground pool. The owners are Edward and Teresa Kronk, and the property is located in the Sedgwick Highland James Preservation District. Mr. Kronk is here.
Good morning.
Good morning. May I have your name and address for the record, please?
Edward Kronk, 118 Wendell Terrace, Syracuse, New York.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Purpose of our application is to install an in-ground pool in the rear yard of my property. The pool will be placed in the actual lawn that's currently existing. We'll basically dig a hole and fill it back in with water. There's an existing fence that surrounds the property, and then the driveway is actually recessed, so there is a more than a higher 4-foot barrier to entry to the yard. Any access to the yard is protected by locking gates already. The pool equipment, which would be a heat pump, a water pump, a salt system, and a filter, would all be installed in the side yard, which currently holds our air conditioning units, and it's within the proper setback of our neighbor's property. I believe it's going to be about 10 feet back. And that's all screened. You can't see that from the street by the fence. And the pool itself is going to be surrounded by brushed concrete, 3-foot width all the way around the perimeter as drawn.
Okay. Is there anybody here to speak?
Does the board need any clarification from?
Sorry.
How tall is the fence, the existing fence around the property?
Existing fence, I believe it's over 6 feet.
Great. Yeah, I see. Thank you.
Any clarifications from any other board member? Okay. Are there any persons here to speak in favor of this proposal? Please come forward. Okay, let the record show there are none. Are there any folks here to speak in opposition to this proposal? Okay, let the record show there are none. We can close the comments and we can discuss as a board. Any issues that anyone sees on here? We have a concrete deck around the pool. You said it was 3 foot, sir? 3-foot brushed concrete, and this is actually replacing a patio.
It's actually grass. There's a temporary pavers that are down that we put down just to put a table on,
Okay.
so we didn't have to mow around it every year. So,
okay.
because we knew we were going to eventually put a pool in, so we didn't build any patios.
Okay, and there's no screening required. It's all fenced. Usually we'll see.
It meets the building code requirements.
Meets all building code requirements. Concrete, brushed concrete is a typical installation. It's a material at the time, so there's no issue there. That's just my clarifications. If
No, it looks
anybody
like
else-
there's no visibility to the street at all
Correct.
from the pool. That was my other, both the sight lines from the street and the question about the fence. How about I can't tell, I'm assuming this is south. Is there any sort of impact visually or otherwise to the neighboring property to the south?
To the south, let's see,
Whatever's
north.
To the right of the house
Yeah,
looking
it
from
would
the
be to the
street.
south, yeah.
Okay, so that is all fenced in, so the actual house could probably see over the fence. It's a 1-story house to the south of us, but it's in line with my house, so it would have to kind of look at an angle to see the pool.
Okay, so no major disruption.
I would say no.
So we can go ahead and close the public comment? Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the project as submitted.
All right. Motion's been made. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Good luck with your pool project. Let us know when it opens.
Oh, that's okay. I'll
Pull up this next.
we'll just start there for now. Yeah. Okay, so we're ready for the next public hearing. This one is for application CA-25-05. It is a certificate of appropriateness for 409 Sedgwick Drive for window replacements. The owners are Eric and Chrissy Livergood, and the property is in the Sedgwick Highland James Preservation District. And the Livergoods are here.
Morning.
Good morning. Please introduce yourself.
My name is Eric Livergood.
Chrissy Livergood, 409 Sedgwick Drive.
Thank you.
And we've also brought with us our contractors and our Marvin window rep to distribute materials on exactly what we'd like to do. Oops. So there are about, what's the total count, 26? 28 windows in the house that all have some form of deterioration, some very bad, some okay. And in the process of renovating the home, we looked at repairing some of the windows and ultimately concluded that the best thing for both consistency in the look and also preserving the original feel of the house would be to replace them, because a lot of them have storms on them that have a metallic look from the outside. And like I said, all of them have some level of deterioration. We spent about 3 months talking to repair folks to figure out what that project would look like and how much it would cost. In the end, we've concluded that it would cost up to 50, or at least 50% more than replacements. That was a floor price given to us relative to the replacements, and not very convinced that the quality would be where we want it. And in the end, we're going to end up with a superior product because, like, for environmental and efficiency. What else? I guess, are there things from the application include lots of information, including pictures and also specs on the replacements. We have Woody here from Marvin to show you a demo unit of the window itself. The brochures, do you want to talk through the SDL?
Oh, well, first of all, we're doing all 28 windows just to maintain the aesthetic of the house, and so we're not doing anything piecemeal. The window, the sample we have is not white, but intending to have white interior and exterior. And then this window doesn't quite show it, and I don't think it's in the application, but I can show you a picture of the inserts that go in here to maintain the look and feel of the original. I don't know the technical term for the dividers.
The simulated design, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So on the bottom left picture is what we've spec'd out to give the most accurate look and feel to the original window.
Doing it as an insert, so the frame of the old wood window would still be there. This can be ordered as an insert as well as a new construction, but we're doing it as an insert. And it's a fully fiberglass protruded product, so technically this can be painted just like you would with wood, and you paint any color and it doesn't void the warranty or anything like that. So it's also the strength and durability much better than a vinyl unit.
Does that conclude your presentation, or is there anything else? Good, okay. Now, I'll ask for those wishing to speak in favor to this proposal to come forward to speak. Let the record show there are none. Anyone here wishing to speak in opposition to this proposal? Okay, let the record show that there are none. Board comments?
Again, you're not replacing anything exterior, right? Just
Correct.
inserting,
That's kind of-
molding,
that
and
was the
trim on
idea.
the outside of the
We
stand.
would be removing the storm window, we remove. And then I'm sure there would be some kind of treatment to existing wood that's there.
Take it out, yeah.
Go into that, and it would set up next to the stops of the original window, so.
Sit back.
and then, yeah.
Sits in that same plane. Amber, can you pull up an exterior image of the property, please? I don't know if there's one on the application. Any other comments or clarifications from the board? So, clarifications?
The nice thing about the fiberglass unit is it's such a stronger unit that you can get better sight lines with it, where you don't have so much vinyl.
You know what, I don't think I
Original wood window look. So it look closer to what was original to the home.
Do you know those profiles?
The thicknesses I
thick-
don't know.
That's one thing we'd like to know
Right.
with the new mutton pattern, what the current thickness is of the window
The
mutton.
grills and the glass, okay.
Yep, and then what the proposed size is, and as well as the edges. The fiberglass product is far superior than the vinyl, allowing you a thinner profile, but we also like to see that notated from the existing window. And then the proposed window, just so we make sure that we maintain the glazing area.
Basically,
Yeah, gap.
in the,
It's-
I
We
mean, we
don't-
have frame size and other dimensional information.
Right, but we're also looking for the existing.
Relative to the existing.
Right, so
Right.
the styles, right, the styles of the existing window, the sides, how,
And how big the grids are currently, because they do
Correct.
make different widths. So I'm sure that we would be getting something as close as possible to this original.
Yeah, I think to Jeff's point, that's what we would like to see is the side-by-side comparison, just so that we can confirm that we're kind of trying to maintain the sight lines to the greatest extent possible in the house.
Kind of the design behind the window.
Sure. I guess, I think it would be helpful to see some additional documentation kind of on each window. I see that there is some peeling putty, there is some deterioration on the sash units. It also looks like, some of it I cannot tell if it's from the surrounding framing. Are you, if you're just replacing this insert, I assume that means you're also going to be consolidating, repairing all the trim that's supposed to remain. But I think it would be helpful, I just don't know that we have quite enough information on the individual windows with these sort of snapshots. I think for us to confirm that the replacement is, to really understand the level of deterioration that you're saying that is present, I think it would be helpful to see full conditions of each one of the windows.
Sorry, can you maybe give some more detail about exactly how to capture that?
I mean, overall images of the windows, ideally kind of tied to or keyed to the facade of the house would be helpful.
That should have been included. There should have been a key included.
I have the snapshots from the Marvin, but I guess I don't know from looking at these photos if this is the full representation of everything, which windows these are, with the sizes. I see segments. of
Yeah, I guess we
windows.
did not line them up.
The numbers correspond to the spreadsheet.
Which is keyed in a photo of the exterior of the house, but we did not line them up with the proposed,
Yeah,
with the quote units.
Yes, we
That's-
did.
Did we?
I'm not,
Never mind.
yeah, I don't see the photo of the exterior of the house.
Yeah,
That's
there's-
part of the problem, sorry.
Yeah, part of the submission process, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Kate, is that we request exterior image of all four sides. We have the spreadsheet, but windows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then an image of each one, so we can fully understand what the, what's going on around the windows. Yeah, we don't have it in our.
We don't have that.
We don't have that information in our packet.
I'm actually not sure if I do.
Okay.
There's
Okay.
the application went through a couple stages, and it was in the original submission. So
Okay.
I have it in the email chain, but if you don't have it in your photos, like, I can't do anything about
Okay,
that.
well,
So-
let's just, we'll set that aside for now. Any other questions before we proceed? Hmm? Okay. Oops, excuse me. You have a question, Kate? or-
Yeah, I'm not sure if this would it help to have board members go and take a look at the windows themselves?
That's what I'm, that's what I'm thinking. And I just close the public comment and then,
Yeah, right.
all right. So let's officially close the public comment and board deliberation. I'm hearing we don't have sufficient information to make a decision. Maybe that is supplemented by a few of us going out to do a visit, if you're open to that. There'd be no more than 3 of us that would go out and take a look. Okay, and that would be set up through Kate.
And I could set that up for next week, so that
Yeah,
we
and we'll
can
try and get
move
that
along.
ASAP, and then we'll have you back on the next meeting in 3 weeks, if that's amenable to you folks.
Be here. Yeah, we might have to.
Yeah, we will not be here.
Okay. Process-wise,
Process-wise, so you could have a representative come. I think that will have provided the board with sufficient information. And so if you have a representative be able to be a stand-in for you.
Yeah, we can try and do that.
Yeah, if that would work.
Yeah.
just so we can keep the process moving forward for you guys.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so the flavor of the board here is to hold this open, and we'll set up a site visit. Okay, and just a second. And in the meantime, we'll get those, the existing size of the windows, muttons and sash styles and rails, just so we have a compare contrast.
Yep. That sounds good. Okay.
Okay,
Do
great.
we know what they need there? Okay. And you can point in the window what I need to measure?
Right.
And you understand what we're looking for, right?
That's what I was confirming with him. I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah. Don't measure from the parting bead, measure the whole width of that style. How wide they are at the widest point. Sometimes they taper.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Okay. Old business. Kate, introduce the next project. Have we seen this one yet?
Okay, yes. So, let me get my notes. Okay. So, this is old business. It's a certificate of appropriateness for 100 Windsor Place to construct a single-story garage with a one-bedroom accessory unit attached. It's in the Berkeley Park Preservation District. At the last meeting, the board approved the application with two conditions. One, that the board, that the garage and ADU would be moved north beyond the drip line of the mature trees located along the south property line to protect the trees and provide greater distance between the new construction and the neighboring property to the south. And the second condition was that the height of the garage would be reduced by lowering to the maximum extent possible the top plate of the garage in order to reduce the overall height and scale of the garage. Subsequent to that approval, the applicant's architect, Frank Cusimano from In Architects, did some further analysis, and he sent back his analysis, which is as follows: that after consulting with the landscape designer Kepling Freeman and Associates, we provided a graphic in the attached revised drawings, sheet A1. The graphic illustrates that the backing up of a Chevy Suburban out of the closest garage bay to the house, it illustrates that, and that as he says, as you notice, an owner with this size vehicle would have to do a 3-point turn to be able to have a clear shot at a full frontal drive out, which is feasible. Moving it further north would compromise the space available, as well as the extra parking space for the ADU. So the conclusion was that this was not feasible to move the entire structure north. In terms of the other condition, Mr. Cusimano wrote, after looking into the design consideration, by reducing the plate height and fulfilling the client's needs for an 8-foot garage door height, with common garage door height ideal for vehicles with roof racks, etc., it is determined that the roof height can't be reduced and will remain the same. By lowering the plate, it will affect the headroom height needed for tracks and openers to function properly, and any capacity to utilize the storage above. Yes, so basically came back saying that neither of the conditions could be met. So it has come back to the board. I requested or sent it back to the board for your consideration. And the board has any number of, you have a number of options here in consideration of these notes that have come back, the analysis that has come back. The board can uphold its decision, including the conditions. The board can revise the conditions of the approval, could remove the conditions of the approval, or deny the application. The applicant does have the right to appeal the conditions of the approval. And I just also wanted to say, I believe that Nicole Fragnito, you're recusing yourself from this vote? Okay. Okay. Oh, and so here today to speak on the part of this project, for this project, is Anthony Rojas.
Anthony Rojas from In Architects. Frank is out sick, so I'm here replacing him. It's not that he loves coming to these meetings. So we did do our studies in trying to achieve both of the items as mentioned by Kate. The one kind of item from the site perspective, not only is a turning radius, I briefly spoke with the adjacent neighbor, and one of the other concerns was making sure that the berm that currently exists along the length of the driveway would be be maintained so that no stormwater discharge would fall into their yard either. And we have confirmed that that is going to remain so that there's no impact to the adjacent neighbor in terms of stormwater. So when we come to the item for the building height, that building section's a little deceiving and it doesn't show 100% of the information. And additionally, there is a concern of the overhead door and the operations from an internal perspective. But when we redesigned the roof pitches and we created that flat portion between the two gable structures, what you're not seeing there is the tapered insulation that's going to be required in that flat roof, which now starts to pitch up into the two raised gable end sections just so that we can get them into a center drain. And knowing that snow drift and with the amount of snow that we received this year, all of that piling up of snow in that intersection, we want to make sure that gets constructed and the contractor has enough access to flash properly and make sure that the durability of what's going to be done is done properly and no snow or no water is going to be penetrating interior of the building. So that dimension, I almost argued to the owner, I would love to see the right roof be raised, but I'm not going to even present that today because I think that is too much of a pinch point to give a sufficient area for a contractor to do their work correctly and to make sure we don't have any water infiltration. So the solution to the left is one that we feel with access and flashing is what's required, and it's not solely just an interior condition. That's the issue. It's also an exterior one for why we feel we can't lower this or shouldn't lower this. And we do, again, just to reiterate, meet the zoning height requirement as defined by the zoning code. So we're hoping that, knowing that we've done the work necessary to kind of arrive to this point, knowing we couldn't achieve anything further, but the way the conditions were presented, it was giving us a bit of leeway to do our work and to see what, bless you, to see what could be done. And I hope you take that into consideration.
Thank you. Board comments?
So just to clarify, so there, when you're talking about drainage, it's all just shedding, or I maybe misunderstood. I thought you were draining internally.
We're draining internally on the flat roof, so we're going to pitch the roof internally to a drain to get the water out. We're not going to shed outwards to create more uncontrolled stormwater conditions.
Okay. And there's no gutters.
No gutters.
You were talking about that. My first thought was, could the small roof, small pitched roof, be incorporated into the flat section adjacent to it, and keep just the portion over the garage be the slightly more prominent section, which would also sort of be a little more deferential to the existing building, and have it read more as an accessory unit rather than as a separate standalone structure on its own.
So the raised portion on the right, if we lower it, creates a triangulated surface where they meet towards the back end because your gable end is kind of right. I don't believe that's the intent of the owner is to achieve kind of the aesthetic that's been presented, and I think the issue is really on the upper roof. And again, I think the overall height meets the zoning restrictions. So.
And look at the floor plan, or at least kind of something that gives us the roof layout. So what's deceiving in this cut that I see is that the ADU front wall sets back 12 feet or so. It looks like it's very prominent in this section. So to do, as you just said, for maintenance, I'm trying to put it together where this flat roof goes back and then covers, it just separates these two gabled structures, basically.
Correct.
Right? So up front here, yeah, this picture is good, thank you. Up front, you could shed that roof to the north. You could pitch that roof to the north because we don't have the battling gable issue there, right? So, but you're going to butterfly that whole roof and internally drain it?
Where between the two gable roofs, we're going to internally drain that and not shed that off.
Okay, so this front projection here over the bay, over that, half-car bay, what, is that internally drained as well, or?
We haven't fully designed the full pitch of this. My understanding is, yes, we will try to maintain and capture as much of that roof water as possible.
Okay, so that profile might come up to make almost a parapet?
It'll come up, not on the front edge, it'll come up along the back edge to be able to make sure that we slope them inwards of each other. So the section that was shown there, you're going to see much more of a higher taper on the brick set, on the wall side where the flat meets the raised
What about
portion.
the northeast corner?
I don't think it's going to go up. I think we have enough leeway in this to be able to come down on that front end and taper more towards the back end. So you're going to have a higher point on the back end where it meets the wall and a lower. So it may come in, down, maybe a foot in or 2 foot just to make sure it doesn't create a drip edge condition, and then slope more from the back edge.
Does that do anything to your ceiling height?
No, it's all above
Clearance.
the planes that have been shown in this section.
Okay.
So the real reason why you can't lower the roof is so the garage doors can open and close and not hitting. How much room, I see on the drawing, it takes into, and then you have like 2 feet up before you start.
It's a raised heel truss,
Yes.
which allows for 6 feet at its peak, but it's much less as it tapers down of storage space within that truss area. So the owner would like to have storage capabilities within that raised area, within that volume. And 6 feet's already below kind of real accessible space anyway. So there's 3 conditions really that causes this as the solution.
So when this was a 2-story proposal originally, they weren't planning to have the storage in the second story. They were just planning to have ADU in the second story.
Correct.
But now it's kind of like a 1.5-story.
Correct. We were previously at a 22-foot height, and it was dropped to 16 to adhere to the recommendations of this board and the zoning. It was originally 22'2" or something.
The clearance from top of door to bottom of court is shown as 18 inches.
I'm sorry, repeat that again?
Top of overhead door, 8 foot, and then the bottom of the corridor, your top plate dimension, you've got 18 inches there.
Correct.
And that is holding an opener.
The track, the motor, the size of the actual panel and how much clearance it needs when it rotates.
Did you look at a double rail to pull that top panel of the door in faster at a lower capacity? I see that as an opportunity to buy maybe 6 inches or so. I see that opportunity there, and we've asked you to reduce, and we haven't really seen any changes. So
So the changes really have
I'm trying to
occurred for over 5 meetings of reducing from 22 to 16, and I think that was a big drop in accommodation by the owner to date.
And then we asked you to, look at reducing the height again, and the same one submitted. So I'm trying to understand the language within this of where we can find a meeting ground to have both sides smile at the end of this.
Right. And I think the meeting minutes don't reflect. I went back and I watched kind of the conversation from last meeting, and the way the conditions were kind of presented by Julia and the board agreed was that we were given some of this leeway to do some additional work and some studies that we, depending on what our findings were, that those conditions were met upon that work being completed, to move it to the extent that we could feasibly come to. And I think we've done that work.
Any other comments from the board? More questions, clarifications? Have enough to make a decision to move on?
Again, the options here are to.
Right, to hold it open,
To-
I'm sorry.
Well, to keep the original decision as is, with the original resolution with the conditions, to revise the conditions, to remove the conditions of the approval, or to deny it.
What's the flavor of the board?
May I ask one clarification based on one of those options? If we were to maintain the decision that was made in the previous meeting, would you be in agreement that we've met those conditions today the way things are?
No, the conditions as recorded were that it would be moved to the north, and that the height of the garage would be lowered to the maximum extent possible, I think is
Yeah.
and yeah.
Yeah, I think both of those, the way it was recorded in the minutes and the way it was actually spoken in the meeting, I believe there was a bit of, I guess, documentation of those minutes. There was offered leeway for us to be able to do these studies, to be able to get to where we are getting to. And I think that was not recorded, 100% in the meeting minutes, so I just hope that.
I don't believe that was the understanding of the board when it made when the resolution was approved.
The board directed you to work with Kate on the two conditions that they were imposing. They didn't make the conditions optional. They said for you to look into those two conditions that they were requiring. So that, I think, is a misapprehension here. And it's duly recorded in the resolution from the meeting.
So since we have Nicole being recused due to conflict, we have 4 board members. We all need to vote in unison for anything to pass, either denied or approved. So what's the chatter? What are we looking at? Any additional information? Do you have enough information? We feel that they've responded and to comments.
I guess I'm still not clear of why you can't move it to the north a little.
So the way the diagram showed in the site plan, the only way that truck can back out of that parking space is to already do a 3-point turn based on where the location is as proposed. So if we were to move it any closer, it would be even more maneuvering.
Closer to the north.
Right, to the north, closer to the house. There's just no space to be able to back up in through that driveway to be able to turn to come out.
So turning into where the other garage was, backing out into where the other garage was.
Right.
All right. Now, could you back straight up the driveway or no?
It's a pretty extensive driveway, and it's not the easiest maneuvering to come down that slope and back out
60
into the
feet?
roadway.
Yeah.
60 feet based on your scale? Maybe 70?
That's not even the end of the drawing. It goes even further.
That gets you to a point where you
You
could
can do a
turn.
Right. You've got that driveway easement there that comes through, so you could back up into that and then go up forward. I don't think there's a restriction of movement on that space.
No.
So if we made that setback 10'6", it would appease the board as additional space, knowing that our setback is 4 feet.
I'm sorry, say that again?
So if we were to change that dimension of 10 foot to 10'6", knowing that our setback is 4 feet, would that accomplish this study?
Part of the reason for the setback was out of concern for the vegetation, right? That additional beyond the 4-foot minimum requirement. So I don't know if that would satisfy that concern.
Yeah, I don't think
I
6
don't think that's
inches.
adequate to address that.
I don't think we're saying move it 6 inches, but as Kyle just mentioned, we were pushing it away due to the existing vegetation, not getting into the root structure and totally annihilating the mature vegetation that provides that privacy screen.
So is there a dimension that would appease the board?
We're not the designer, right?
So we're here seeking approval. So if there is a dimension and a request that's specific from the board that'll appease the board, then we'd be open to hearing that and setting that in stone as a condition, because it was left a bit open for us to be able to come back and make a proposal. So if you were to be able to determine a dimension, which is basically a constraint beyond what the zoning requires, we would love to hear that, to understand what your position is.
So we can provide a range. I would, as a landscape designer, I would look at your size of canopy of your largest tree in the area that you're going to be undermining, and look at the drip edge. I know that's not a dimension, but when you're out on site, the edge of the canopy is your drip line, your drip edge. It's a guideline to help to create a rubric in order to understand how much impact, how to reduce your impact on that vegetation. And if that's 6 inches, it's 6 inches. If it's 3.5 feet, it's 3.5 feet.
And if the existing tree that's trying to be salvaged in this is a canopy that extends the full depth of that driveway, which would make this building infeasible based on that approach, is that what you're telling me?
No, I'm
Because I
looking for
believe the
professional
canopies right now, if you
opinion.
look at the overall bird's eye view on the top, if you can scroll up a little bit, you'll notice that the vegetation completely covers that driveway in terms of canopy today, which would mean locating this structure anywhere would not be allowed based on that determination.
Right, well, I guess in my mind, what I'm thinking of is protecting vegetation. You know, it's kind of put right out in the guideline of the neighborhood. It's called out 4, 5, 6 times about protecting vegetation. And so I feel that's a major component that we're dealing with in this project, as well as the massing and scale of the structure, to protect to the greatest extent possible, right? I'm not saying you need to be at drip edge, but I need a professional opinion to look at it and say, you know, if we're a range of 13 or 16 or 18 feet from the base of the tree, from the bole of the tree, we feel that's sufficient space to protect the vegetation and not kill the tree during this project, right?
So our landscape architect and our site engineer, Kepler Freeman, has been working with us in this plan. They've provided this information to this plan, and they've studied that vegetation. And I could provide a letter from them or whatnot, but just based on knowing they're a part of the team and providing these drawings, that's what they do. And they're always trying to be cognizant and salvaging as much vegetation and making sure that there's no landscape impact to adhere not only to there, but it's just the way they practice. So it's not like they're not at the table either. So they're definitely aware and trying to be very respectful of what's there.
Understood, but one of the caveats of how we're looking at it is tree first, not building first, right? So we're trying to protect what we have. So, and I don't speak against their professional opinion, but I'm just looking at, if you're looking at it from tree first protection, you might have a different rendering, is my point.
Is in the drawing, the back of the structure, does that fall where that decline is on the property?
Just
or
before.
how far back? Just
Just
so you
before.
are all the way further as back as you can go.
Right, that's what shifted, I think in our initial proposal, that structure was set back, and that was before we had grading. So to not create any issues structurally with that edge, we pulled it all back. Initially, we had proposed a much different position before we had the grading information, and then that just created an issue.
Anything else? Right. If not, then, you know, we need to move on, so we got to put forward to a vote here, so.
I think you might want, just for clarity of the record, vote on each condition separately, whether you're going to change them or not. I know they were 2 conditions attached to the same approval, but because they're coming up with, there's 2 separate discussions you're going to have, I presume. So I'm not sure you need to vote, but you may wish to vote. But the bottom line is you need to clarify whether you're going to ask that the applicant do something else or any of the options that Kate.
Right, so we're looking at holding it open, revising the conditions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hold it open, right? Or revise the conditions, remove these conditions, the 2 conditions that we created from last month, or from last meeting, excuse me, or deny the application. So looking at, as council has suggested, each condition, Did they meet the condition number 1 of moving the structure northerly as we requested?
No.
And did they meet condition number 2 of attempting to reduce the height as directed? Right,
Yeah,
so,
stayed the same,
right,
so.
right. So, yes, we received statements of why those were not able to be changed based on the architect's decision. So we, as the board, we can revise those conditions or remove them. We can hold this application open, ask, can we, or,
You
no?
can't hold the application open. This is a request for clarification,
Okay.
so you
So holding
can,
this off the table, thank you.
because you've already voted on it, so you can revise the conditions, eliminate the conditions, or
Deny.
deny the application based on the fact that the applicant is unable to meet the conditions.
Thank you for the clarification. Nicole's abstaining, so Kyle, Howard, Hillary?
And if we would have a preference, we would prefer not the denial and just holding what's been open, but that would just be our position.
Holding open is not on the
Or
table.
holding the decision that's been made with the conditions.
The storage space on the second floor, the bonus room truss or whatever it is, with showing the 6'6" height, that could be brought down, right? They can make a truss that allows for like a 5-foot height there.
If the volume of the 6'6" can be dropped, yes. But the issue with the dropping it is, in my mind, the flashing in the transition between the gable end and the flat roof portion, knowing that there's going to be tapered insulation and proper access and flashing there to make sure that there's no water penetration. It's going to create an issue based on that transition if it's not done properly. And if, I would recommend to the
So,
owner, raising the
just-
right side.
We're talking 1/4 inch per foot as standard practice for the slope of the drainage. So what kind of dimension are we talking about? And I guess I'm a little confused how much depth you're actually anticipating there. One, because I don't have, I see there's 9'6½", so let's say that you're going wall to wall, that's, what, 4.5, 5 feet, so 5/4 of an inch, 1.25" total across that section. I don't have the roof plan to know what it is in the other direction, but it seems to me like you have a healthy amount of room to still be able to flash and be able to drop that roof yet, a number of inches anyway. So I'm still a little confused as to where we're coming with the significant impact of the tapered insulation in that circumstance.
If we were to match the condition to the right, that condition there is 2'6" maybe of access underneath that overhang to the flat roof portion.
Okay?
So it's really just getting a laborer under there and making sure that the actual condition is appropriately done. 2'6" access is a tight space to work within. So if I were to drop it to match that elevation on the right, that's the difficulty, is providing access.
I think if that were simplified, that could be made easier to accomplish.
Simplifying the design.
Simplifying the profile of that roof. And there would be adequate space to accomplish that transition without any concern for making it a durable condition or providing sufficient access to implement it. If I'm looking at, for example, the image provided of the existing roof with the sort of portico end front there, there's no, pronounced expanded overhang happening with that existing condition on the house. So there certainly is precedent, if we're deferring to the original structure, to draw from our language that that wouldn't necessarily need to be a component of the roof, and then you would be able to drop that.
So if we were to drop to match the spring point of the the roof edge to match the right proportion and drop that, which would probably be a course. Would that appease the board?
When you say a course, I mean a brick course, because it looks like it'd be more than that.
Whatever that dimension is, so whatever that differential is, to match the condition to the right, to be able to drop that.
So to make the eave height the same elevation, what
Right.
you're saying?
Carry the same eve height.
That looks like that would probably bring us down, I would say, 8 to 10 inches. Maybe, it's hard to say for sure,
Yeah,
but
we don't have dimensions to work
No.
with, and I think that's what we're struggling is
Right.
with as well.
what that actually.
And the course, I meant a full course, so yeah, an 8-inch. But whatever that dimension is, if we were to match that to the right side.
And then that would demonstrate, you know, looking into lowering the roof height as was conditional the last meeting, so I think I would be more comfortable with that. Condition there.
What's that interplay look like?
Excuse me, Tyler.
And if we lower that to match the smaller ADU side, then that pent roof, I guess you call it, that projects out over the garage doors, then we come into that issue of being able to get in there to flash and get in, you know, it's going to become a tighter space. That may need to be reduced or revised in some way to accommodate that. So, I mean, it's a very strong element across the front of the garage. Very good, heavy design piece that now is in conflict, I feel, with that gable. So we have, you know, if we take a look at that, we're going to have we'll have, I don't know, a conflict with that. But pulling that down, I think, I'm hearing positive
Yeah.
from the board here. If we pull that the larger gable down to meet that, the ADU side of the gable height, or at least the plate, not, you know, we've got a different span. So, but I think that also starts to open up a couple of other issues, as I was just saying, with that pent roof, and how
Yeah,
that.
we could deal with that when we start detailing this and figure that out.
Yeah, I think, to me, it starts to get like visually heavy, and it's a little like cacophony to my eyes on that with those two so close. You might want to, I don't know, reduce in scale one or the other, I'm not sure.
I mean, looking again at the sort of element that it's trying to ape off of the main house, it is, the massing is overall larger. It looks like it's also a little bit higher, so there would be an opportunity to, without lowering the head height of the doors, maybe reduce the overall thickness and height of that kind of eyebrow as well. And I think that then that probably would resolve the pinch point that you're talking about.
Does that make sense as what he's saying there, Anthony? I just, because now we got to articulate it into a condition. You want to?
Yeah, how do I say it?
So we're lowering basically top plate, or that's a heel on that truss. So we're technically lowering the heel of the left truss to match the right truss.
Let me just say we're going to match the eve of
Eve
both
height
rushes.
of the
Of
lower
both.
section.
Yes.
And
Yeah, I was gonna.
We're going to align the spring point of the roof to align with the right.
Yeah. So you're lowering it down.
So the lower one will take the precedent, and will control the larger gable, and it'll be reduced X amount of feet.
in turn look at reducing the profile of the kind of garage eyebrow.
Well, I'm calling it a pent roof, you're calling it an eyebrow. I don't know what you, like, architecturally what that component is called, but that horizontal band that is contiguous.
Projecting.
Yeah, it ties into the cornice of the flat roof. And then
So the height of wherever the top of roof, the flat roof is going to be basically define where that constant fascia is going to follow around the perimeter of that.
Right.
So whatever that is, whatever the depth ends up being, we'll study that depth, but we'll align that fascia line between flat roof and eyebrow.
Yes.
Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah, and I mean, it's shown in your.
It shows a continuous element on the
Yes.
elevation.
And I think
Yes.
it's a very strong component
Yep.
of the structure. And as you're saying, it picks up on the main house, a little larger scale than the main house, and I think that where Kyle's going.
Yeah, I think simplifying that a little bit would help alleviate a little bit of the pinch point concerns, but I think that it would also make it's sort of overpowering relative to the main house, to make it a little bit more deferential, maybe, in light of this being an accessory unit to the main house.
And with that main gable eve height reduction, the density of that upper cornice and that pent roof that we're talking about starts to become a very, very heavy visual element that outweighs the house itself. It kind of outcompetes with the main house detail-wise, scale-wise.
Right.
So that's a component that we need to, now with that lowering, you'll need to look at that as how to treat that, how to treat those returns and the soffit. Are you writing over there, Kate, for this condition? Like to get it done and.
So we're revising one of our conditions from last time.
Right.
Using the height of the main gable.
Match the eve line of
The
the
shorter element.
shorter gable, shorter element.
Yeah.
That will then,
Profile.
does that sound right to you, Anthony, as we're talking about that?
Sure.
No, we're saying something that is being talked about, and you're hearing it.
Yeah, the overhang is a new item, but yeah, if it means approval.
You're the designer, so.
Okay. What about the other condition? Are we gonna go with
Okay, so moving it north, there are options, as located, it's just two-point turn, back out, and you're right around. It's just a Y.
I believe it's a 3-point turn.
It's a three-point turn as shown right now. And if we were to move it northerly, then we go into more of a 5-point turn, or if they were to decide to back out directly to the common or shared driveway, that is approximately, I'll say, based on the scale provided, 80 feet, and then they could go ahead and back southerly to then turn around and pull forward. You do go up grade, I understand that, but that is an option that's available at this point. So moving it northerly, if we arrange,
I've got a proposal.
go ahead.
It can stay where it is. If any of the large trees are damaged, they are replaced with equally sizable trees or trees that will, we're not buying new saplings to put in their place. We're buying significant trees that helps maintain the opacity between this property and the neighbor's property.
Okay, so proposal is keep as shown, yet provide, are you saying any type of vegetation? Are you looking at evergreen or deciduous?
I think
You should specify the amount of opacity you would want if you're going to go with something like that, which is a great compromise. Just be more specific so that the applicant knows exactly what you're
Exactly.
looking for and that the condition can be detailed and everybody's on the same page.
so. Can we say maintain the opacity that exists currently? Okay. Or do we need to give it a percentage?
You can say that, but
Then we need to define what it is.
you have to define
Okay.
what that is because you don't have a measurement. Is it 75%? Is it 90%? So you can't really say what exists.
Maybe any trees that are damaged, we replace in kind. So if it's an evergreen that's damaged, that's what we put.
Yeah, but we, replacing kind, if they damaged an 8-inch tree, they're not gonna bring in an 8-inch tree.
It could
Right.
grow to be an 8-inch tree, sure, but
Right, but replacing kind.
replacing kind, you can't, we're
You
not hauling
can't
an
do that.
8-inch tree.
So we need to provide, short, succinct, you provide 7 to 8 foot conifer or evergreen planting that is branched, fully branched, meaning all the way to the base. Something along those lines? Right, the deciduous, but on the plan that's shown, I'm seeing little star shapes, which to me represents a coniferous or an evergreen tree? Arborvitae or cedar, yeah.
Okay.
They don't provide much
Screening.
screen. Okay. Okay. Right, so what this proposal would do would provide screening on the first floor, basically. If we're looking at a 7 to 8 foot heavily branched evergreen, that would provide that visual screening as a fence would, but in a live vegetation matter. So
Sounds good to
So
me.
a-
Does it sound?
a 7 to 8 foot heavily branched evergreen,
You need to restate the whole condition.
right? So,
Okay,
And,
proposing.
and also make sure if you're going to, if you want a certain amount of opacity, that you state that in your condition as well, because we're here for clarification so that everybody knows what the expectation is.
Okay, so I'm proposing that we leave the garage in the location shown, but that any trees that are damaged are replaced with 7 to 8 foot heavily branched evergreens to maintain 75% opacity between this property and the neighboring property.
Can we just leave it to the quantity of replacing quantities of trees and not based on opacity? Because how do you base in a triangulated evergreen what volume of area is 75%? Just naturally in the taper of these trees, you're at 50% opacity, even if I stack them side by side based on their triangulation. You know what I mean? So
I would say at grade or in the first 3 feet, that'll give you your heaviest opacity covering.
okay.
I think that would be a fair statement. So opacity at 3 foot up from grade.
Now, we're only talking from the dimensions of the garage, right? Not all going up to,
Any the disturbed area for the
Just
construction of the
disturbed.
garage.
does that have to be part of the explanation?
Yeah, disturbed area, construction area, disturbed area. So, yeah, read that back, Kate.
Okay, so the new construction will stay in the location it is currently indicated. Actually, here's a question. Is it any trees that are, or anything that is damaged, or are you saying anything that is, any trees that are damaged will be replaced, or are you looking for really a new hedgerow?
Anything
That-
damaged to be replaced.
Placed by 7 to 8 foot conifer, fully branched conifer,
Evergreen.
evergreen, thank you. Actually, I did write evergreen. And it is 75% opacity from at grade to 3 3 foot from grade.
measured 3 foot from grade.
Okay.
I should probably say as installed, because it will grow.
As installed. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Get in the weeds if we,
We don't want any weeds growing.
Yes.
no pun intended, but
Can we vote on
who
And
determines that?
and I'm sorry,
the
and
damage of it.
And the,
Yeah, right, well, who determines what's
We'll let the
what's
landscape
damaged?
architects
Yeah.
on the project determine.
and then also the other condition is reducing the height of the main gable to be in line with the eave height of the shorter gable. Right? And then to reduce the scale of the overall scale of the projecting pent roof, that the dominant horizontal
Yes.
fan. Yeah.
Okay.
Or those are the two revisions to the conditions.
I'll move to accept the project with the revised conditions.
Do I have a
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those who oppose? Abstain?
I abstain.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Good job, board. Tough one.
Okay. Do we have the legal? We are, okay.
All right.
All right, very good. Let me grab my notes. So the next item is under new business. It's a minor site plan review application 2525 for 930 James Street, which is the Barnes Mansion. It's site work to establish an accessory parking area. The property is listed in the National Register of Historic Places, and the role of the board is to review and provide comment back to zoning, and of course, back to the applicant.
Good morning. So I'm Terry Horse from Terry Horse Landscape Architecture, and here with Kathy Comer from the Barnes Mansion. And so we're proposing to pave the parking lot that they have. So presently, the parking lot is gravel at the best. And so we're proposing to make it asphalt, regrade it. We've incorporated green infrastructure. There is an existing green infrastructure grant that we are utilizing. We're revising it a little bit because we needed to meet the current code, which calls for the parking lot to align with the front facade of the building. So that basically is pushing it all the way back. You can see, it's not an aerial, but so basically that whole area of the parking lot and then that dotted area, which is now going to be lawn and landscaping, was the existing gravel parking. Oh, you can see it here. So that kind of gray space was overgrown on that other end, but so that was the extent of it. So we're repaving everything. We're going to redo, and we already have permits to redo the entrance off of James Street. And if you're familiar with it, it's hazardous. So we're hoping that by repaving it and lowering the grade, that will improve that entrance. So there is also a retaining wall to the rear of the property, and there's no images of what it looks like now, but it's just a CMU wall. The highest point is about 3.5 to 4 feet. We're going to remove that and put in not a Versalock wall, but a Ready Rock wall that has a limestone face to it. And I unfortunately, I said it late yesterday to Kate, some of the images of what those would be. So we're actually adding more additional landscaping, though I don't have a plant list included in this, but off the kitchen. So basically, so we have about 86 parking spaces, accessible parking spaces, and then sidewalk and crosswalks to the building. So the rear of the building is the kitchen. There is plans being made up for a new accessible ramp off the portico. Randy Crawford is working with that and getting that to SHPO.
We already have the grant to do the ramp and the back portico, so it's really important for the mansion to work in conjunction so it all comes out smoothly and it's not hodgepodge. There's a lot of pieces that are going into this.
So we're very grateful for, the support that everyone has been giving this. So the back, that little parking lot will also be paved, of course, asphalt. We're going to introduce some bollard lighting there, and that was another example of what we're showing there. There is existing pole lights. They're the big Cobra lights, and that's lighting that is supply. Well, it's National Grid installed those, right? So it's just, so we're going to move some of those around so they can light this parking lot better as well. So, and I think that's pretty much what we're proposing. Simply.
Excellent. Comments, suggestions?
I just, because we're just seeing some of these newer now, so there is no parking to the rear side directly behind anymore in that semicircular area. It's all in the new lot.
There is parking there now, but we're going to not use, we're not going to park after the.
Right, that's what I meant. In the new iteration,
Right.
there's no longer parking. Okay. Is there any reason why you're not introducing some of the lower vegetation along the street frontage of the lot, like you are, to kind of add a buffer between the house and the parking, or is it?
Can I come up?
Yeah. No, adjacent to the new parking area.
So the edge of the new parking.
So I'm
Forward to
what you're
James.
doing here.
Yeah.
I was wondering why we're not doing it here as well, just maybe as an extra screening element from the street or
You're talking
above.
about right in through here. Is this area
Yes.
right
Well,
here?
not necessarily here, but along the perimeter. So, some of the low
answer
line.
Originally, when the house was built, that parking lot was gardens. We have pictures of the original gardens. So the green space that we have to do since rezone, what we want to do is to make those into rose gardens. So that is our plan, is to use, but before we can do that, we've got to get the paving done, we've got to get the dirt in place.
Okay.
Got to let it settle over a winter.
Okay.
And so we have a whole plan of what we want to do with that area, which is to turn it back into gardens that mimic the original gardens.
Okay, so the section closer to the street, you're going to be in a more intentional way implementing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you for that clarification.
This is a fantastic project. The 1936 plan, this is great reference. Kudos to whoever put this together. I know it's a lot of work and a lot of time.
That was ESF.
Yeah, okay.
ESF did
Well,
that.
they did a-
And
they
we're
did
going to
a-
ask them to come back and work in that new green space to develop a garden
Yeah,
plan.
oh, great, great. My comment, Terry talked about it. Code is requiring no further forward than the front of your building,
Yes, for that new zone district.
even though your neighboring buildings are further forward?
It's the new zoning, so
Okay.
that it wouldn't apply.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
we
one of
wanna
the
build the
thoughts was to
grandfather.
try to pull that forward to, if there's a day that we saw this come back to life, your parking lot would not be in it, right? Because the southern half of the lot starts to fall into that rose garden and into that space. But terrific project. Great to hear that you have event space in the front. That's going to become an interpretation of a rose garden. It's great. Anything, you cut off the project, anything to those back lots in this part of this work, or that's totally
It's a different
excluded?
property.
Different
The-
property?
Yeah, the church, the old carriage house, right?
Yeah, the carriage house that faces green, none of that remains as is?
So that property, our property line ends, I'm going to show you.
Right on the edge of the green there. Yeah, okay, okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure if that was a property line or if that was just a cut line. Thank you.
Ultimately, if the day ever came that we could purchase the carriage house, that would be a coup. We'll see. But yes, it would be wonderful to be able to incorporate that back in.
Anybody else? Any other comments?
Just comments.
I have a question about the bollard lights, the example that you provided. Would that also be on the same ones used throughout the parking area, also used on this curved wall facing the gazebo?
So that's where those lights are. They're on the curved wall.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to be practical in the parking area, just due to, it doesn't make sense to have it back there. It's not, these are more decorative. And we're hoping to have another pole light there to cover the illumination there.
Have you considered something lower profile on this wall, on the curved wall?
So the height on those lights can either be 36 to 40 inches. I think once we get really low and you're plowing snow, I'd be worried that you would lose the visibility from the plows.
Okay.
Right. Terrific project. Good luck with it. Save some bricks from that driveway when those come out. Do a little memorial pad or something.
Yeah, no, we're going to sell them, okay, raise more money.
There you go. Oh, there's the fundraiser idea right there. All right.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay,
Thank you. Great project. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. The final project today is it's a major site plan review for 400 Burnett Avenue. Oh, okay. But I don't believe the applicant is here. The applicant is not here, so.
Okay, do you want to hold it open, or do you want to, we're here, do you want us to take a few minutes to look at it, or?
I don't know what your policy is about the applicant being present.
For this one, if there are recommendations that you might want to pass on, we actually need to be kicked out of here in just about 5 minutes, so.
Cameras aren't for us?
The camera is not for us, thankfully. So if, in reviewing the information, which I had asked the applicant to provide more detail regarding how they're going to cut in those doors, and they did not provide it, so that could be a request.
I would also like a little, I know, it looks like they're doing a storefront, but finish, color, things like that.
Yes.
Would be nice to see
Yep.
relative to the
Okay.
other building.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Read that back. Okay, any additional discussion or correspondence?
All motion to adjourn?
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Motion passes. Thank you. Yeah. And it's a struggle, but he was waiting.
So it has to do architectural drawing. So I can make an apartment on it, but I know it's gonna be a little pricey, so.
Yes, you're not rushing to do it.
Yeah. I gotta have it in my mind. I just haven't figured out if I wanna open or make a one bedroom. Cause the frame is there for one bedroom, it's just, the walls,
Yeah.
or have it open, like an open studio, and, or if I wanna get too extravagant and have.
If they can do, I think that was his concession.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, like a
This is
community space.
Yes, community space.
then he can do it.
But I don't know if that's conducive for that or not.
Preservation's important as well.